Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. This is the special edition, Juneteenth edition. Happy Juneteenth, people. I'm super excited to welcome you to the podcast, and I have a special guest joining me today. I am not alone. I am bringing to the stage Dr. Darlene Williams, also known as Dr. D. She's a grief therapist, but also she's an educator. She's been a professor for many years, educating us, right? But she's also the CEO and founder of her own consulting company, and she's restoring Bountiful Joy LLC. So I'm super excited to bring you to the front. Dr. D, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you? Great to see you.
Good to see you. So tell folks a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Awesome. So Dr. D, Reverend Dr. Darlene Williams. I'm president and CEO of two united firms. One is Dr. Darlene Williams Consulting, which is really kind of our executive arm. We do a lot of executive coaching, help organizations through their strategic planning process, trainings for executives, and really making sure that organizations are set up for success. I've been in the nonprofit and government world for about probably 30 years. So I've seen a lot of things that executives kind of struggle with and what their teams need. So Dr. Darlene Williams Consulting, we help organizations really just be on the right track in every way you could possibly think of. Restoring Bountiful Joy is the heart of my work. So that organization was founded after my parents, the late Robert Brown Jr. and Betty Jean Brown, and it's their initials, RBJ, and we focus on helping individuals through their grief and loss journey, and not just individuals. I recently did a full training for an organization where their case managers and social workers deal with a lot of grief and loss. And I train them on how to help their teams and themselves handle that in the workspace. So we talk about grief and loss. I started a grief and loss ministry at my church. I teach in seminary as well. But I also help people understand that grief is not limited to loss of life. It can focus on grieving anything that you don't have access to anymore, something you were close to, a belief system, a person that could still be alive and the relationship is shattered, a part of you that you thought would happen that just didn't happen and that part of you died. So grief holistically and also the journey. And I connected to my books. I have about 14 books out on Amazon. One in particular, Father, Mother, Sister, My Grief But God, Moving Forward Without Pieces of My Heart, talks about my grief journey in losing my entire childhood family in 6 years. My mother, my father, and my sister all passed within a 6-year period. And that signature book speaks about that. And then I have other books related to how youth and young adults go through grief and loss.
Thank you so much for sharing that. When I first heard about you and that you were a grief therapist, I was like, oh my God, I need to have you on my podcast because it's something that we all deal with. And I love the fact that you said that grief is not always somebody passing away. I know that people, when they leave certain jobs, there's a grieving process, especially if it wasn't their decision to leave, whether it was downsized or fired or whatever, there's a grieving process. And also when people leave a certain church, or church shut down, and so there are so many ways that people grieve. But for me specifically, selfishly, I was like, I know that I struggled when my children were grieving and I didn't recognize it. So my dad died when my kids were 6 and 7 years old. I never saw them cry. And so I just thought it didn't impact them. But then I later got to see how it did impact them. My son's behavior started to change at school. And I remember his vice principal asking me, is something going on at home? And I was like, what? I'm offended. Then she's like, anybody pass away? I was like, my dad, but I don't think that impacted them. And she was like, oh yeah, it definitely did. And you did see that behavior switch. And then my daughter being 6 years old, I never saw her cry about it. Didn't see her behavior change. But then she named her firstborn son after my dad. And I was like, there was some impact there that I didn't recognize. And so, how as parents, and I've seen so many people post about like their child's father died, that they're no longer with, or auntie or grandparent on the other side that they're no longer connected to. How do we help our kids grieve, especially if we don't, how to recognize the signs and how to help them through that?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I'm so glad you gave that example. You know, four of the books that I have are focused on exactly that, walking through the grief journey with children. One is for children in K through 4, the other is middle school, high school, and then college, and they're on Amazon, so you can find them. But it teaches us as parents how to realize that we're going through a grief journey, but our children are watching us. And it's not just us who lost somebody, it's our children as well. Like I said, my entire family, my father, mother, and my sister all passed within 6 years. So that was my children's auntie. That was their grandparents, right? And now having my own grandkids, you know, I'm grieving the fact that my parents never got to see their great grandchildren.
Yeah.
And I can see the difference in my children. I can see some of the signs, some of the loneliness when it's Mother's Day or Father's Day, and I'm saying, you know, mommy, you know, a happy anniversary in heaven or something. My kids may not respond, but I can tell when talking to them, little things come out. Oh, I wish grandma was here, or I wish auntie was here, or they would like this. So I think it's, you know, paying attention to our children, especially during significant dates and times. They may not say something on a regular basis like we might, right? But when it's an anniversary or something, they may say something very small. So paying attention to that, um, giving them space to be vulnerable and to talk about it, and not always making it about us. We tend to think that because it's our parents, like you see my parents behind me, that I'm the one that's grieving the most because they're my parents. Maybe not, right? My oldest son was very close to my father. So he could be grieving a lot more than I even realize. So helping them to know that they can talk to you about that grief. And also there's a missing link, right? Grandparents, aunts are important people.
Yeah.
It takes a village to raise a child. So they're missing that piece of their life. Even if they were young when that person passed away, you know, if they're around their friends or they're like my grandmother, my auntie, and they don't have that, you could be grieving something you don't even remember because
Yeah.
you're not able to do that. When I see my grandkids with my husband's parents, I'm like, my parents aren't here. So I'm grieving that. So I would say just remembering that is not always about us, that our children are missing something too. Grief is, you know, I describe it as having love with no place to go. So that missing link. And whether you were 2 years old or 3 years old, we're in a world where we're going to be around things that other people have that maybe we don't. And we could be grieving that missing link. So helping our children to know that we understand, we recognize, we acknowledge, and not to be so self-absorbed that we don't recognize what our children are going through too.
That's huge. Yeah, I have another friend. He's about my age, right around 50-ish, and I think he's a little bit older than I am. And he said he just started seeing a therapist, and he just realized that he didn't properly grieve for his mom when she passed. And I said, "How old were you when she passed?" And he said, 5.
Yeah.
And he's been carrying this his whole life. You know, he's single, he doesn't have any children. And I think a large part of that was still having to deal with the grief. Like it really impacts so many parts of our lives.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was something broken in his heart because of that, you know. And one of the challenges is when somebody has a good replacement person that they can latch on to, it helps more than not having that person, but it doesn't stop the hurt from not having that person. And specifically, like my grandmother raised me from the time I came home from the hospital. And even when my mom was alive, I still had this grieving of her not being present with me, and then she died when I was 15. So I had my grandmother, who was a great replacement. I'm like, life couldn't have been better had I lived with my mom than my grandmother. I'm grateful for where I was. There was still a piece of me that felt like something's missing because my mom wasn't there, even while she was alive.
Yeah, that's important because we don't realize if we don't process grief, and I call that unprocessed grief, no matter how many years go by, if we haven't processed it, it's still there. I do a regular masterclass on unprocessed grief and loss. And one of the quotes that I show in that masterclass is, there was an episode, I want to say it was one of Oprah's, podcasts, and Tyler Perry was on there. And did you see that one? And he talked about, he was talking about grief and loss, and someone in the audience got in the microphone and she started to say, my mother passed away, and then she started crying, and then she started apologizing. Tyler Perry stopped her and said, never apologize, right? Your grief is your grief. And when we ignore it, it's just sitting there waiting for us to say, okay, you're ready now. We can try to work. We can try to keep busy. We can try to just ignore the dates. Some people, I want Mother's Day just come and go. Mother's Day is going to come again the next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. She's getting up. But it's waiting for us to just stop and acknowledge it. It's not going to go away. So unprocessed grief is real. And, I put together a framework through my business and my experience of how to get through that grief journey, because the only way through is through. And it's 5 quick steps in a framework: recognizing what it is, the event that happened, realizing how to reframe it, how to look at it differently as to why it occurred, how to then assess what I need to do in my life. It could be boundaries. It could be, changing certain things about our environment. It could be so many different things. How to rebuild, because now we do have to rebuild. Like, there's a piece of us, whether it's a person or a thing, that's not here anymore. So we can't stay under the desk or put our head in the sand. We have to figure out how to rebuild, because life is for the living and we have to keep going. And then the last step is just how to continue to make sure that we rise, how to make sure it's sustainable. We don't want it to be, like yesterday, the parade. I'm in New York City, the parade for the Knicks, and then all the celebrations, and then it's over. No, when we go through a grief journey and we rebuild, it has to be sustainable. So figuring out how to make realistic steps that we can hold on to and keep, because life's going to keep happening. So we don't want to build ourselves up to a certain point and then something happens and we get knocked down. That saying, if another thing happens, I won't be able to make it. And then guess what? Another thing happens.
Right away.
Right away. Right. Exactly. Sometimes, and I call that compounded grief, back to back to back. Sometimes you don't have a minute to breathe. I didn't have a minute to breathe. July 31st, 2019, my father, Reverend Brown, passed. January 30th, 2022, my mother passed. February 7th, 2024, my sister passed. October 6th, 2024, I became sick and they told me I wasn't going to make it. So I didn't have a moment to breathe in a 6-year period. And those weren't the only people that passed. I had a cousin that just passed of cancer last month at 50 years old. Another cousin at 51 dropped dead of a heart attack a year ago. Like, things happen. But I look at this grief journey, I'm like, Lord, at one point I was like, Lord, my name is not Job. Like, come on. Come on. It's Darlene. It's not Job. But, if you have the proper coach and you have the proper network and community, we can get through it.
That's so good. How did you get to this point in life of saying, I want to be a grief therapist, I want to go into ministry, I want to be a professor? Like, what was that upbringing that brought you to this life's journey?
Yeah. If you would have asked me years ago if I would have followed in my father's footsteps to go into ministry, I was like, no, you crazy. I'm like, I work in social services. That's what I do. But I just graduated with my second doctorate from my father's seminary a couple of months ago. So I got my doctorate, international seminary in religious education. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. My first doctor's in philosophy. And I got in religious education because I teach. That's what I do. Even through working as a nonprofit CEO, working in government, I always find myself in a position of teaching and mentoring and coaching, whether it's my staff, my executive team, people in the community. It's just followed me wherever I go. And also in ministry, teaching and serving. So I want to say it's my assignment, right? There's a difference between your passion and your assignment. You can be passionate about something and know that it's something you like to do, something you want to do, people you like to help. But your assignment is what God gave you to. It's those things where I was going through my grief journey. And for whatever reason, people who were going through a situation or grief kept coming to me. And me and God talk every morning while I'm driving to work. And I'm like, Lord, how are you sending people my way who need support and guidance and a friend in the same thing that I'm going through? Like, I need somebody to help me. And these people kept coming to me. But what I found was I was able to pour into them. I didn't push them away. I was able to give them some words or encouragement or give them a resource. And when you do stuff like that and you don't even think about it until after you finish, I'm like, did I just do that? And I just lost my parent? Like, how did that happen? So,
Yeah.
it's that it's natural. It's not something that you have to look for. So, I hope that answers your question. But it's just, if I'm not doing it, then I feel like I'm not fulfilling my purpose. It's almost like it's not something you can even control.
Okay. Now you were raised in a two-parent household, I'm guessing, and how many siblings?
Just my one sibling that passed away.
Mm,
Yeah.
yep. And you're from New York.
I'm from New York. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens, but New York all the way.
I love it. I almost moved to New York. I almost moved to Brooklyn, as a
Oh,
matter
wow.
of fact, some years ago.
Yeah.
But you know, there's the stereotype that Black folks are not raised in two-parent households, And
Mhm.
so when I see those who are, I love to see that and to see the outcome. What were your parents like as like disciplinarians or as parents, and how did they raise you and your sister to become?
Yeah. I was raised in the house of Reverend Robert Brown Jr. and Betty Jean Brown. So, definitely grew up in my family church, First Baptist Church. So being in a house of worship and serving God and just having that community of a faith-based institution was easy. And something that I instilled in my children and still do to this day. Um, as far as education is concerned, I remember sitting outside, well, sitting in my window, watching my friends outside, going to parties and going places, and I'm inside reading the dictionary. It was okay, learn 5 new words a day, write, put them in a sentence, know their meaning, and then once you finish that, you can go out. So my parents were really strict when it came to our education and our foundation, and I'm grateful for that because I was able to I have 6 degrees and certificates, and I did them all while working full time as a parent, as a wife, going to school at night on the weekends. And I didn't graduate from any college with less than a 3.8. And I did that while being an adult, a real adult. So I credit my parents for that. I watched my father go back to school and get his BA in ministry when he was like 50, 60 years old. They grew up in Alabama. They both they were high school sweethearts. They grew up together. So they went to college. I mean, they went to high school, but they didn't go to college. So watching them do that while I was an adult was amazing to see that they went back to do that. Um, as far as discipline, we didn't want for anything, my sister and I. If there was a financial need, we didn't know. because they worked hard. They were entrepreneurs. They worked multiple jobs. They had their own businesses in different ways. So I watched them really care for us in a very loving way. And we had a close knit family. We definitely had disagreements, but my parents were community servants, faith based leaders, and they were just amazing. Every chance I get when I'm preaching on Sunday or speaking, I give honor to them.
I love that. And so they were from Alabama. Do you know why they ended up making that transition from Alabama to New York?
Just to come to New York for better things when they, became adults. They both transitioned here separately, and then they met when they got here again. It was like a love story all over again. I think my father came first, and then my mother came later with her older brother, and they said, "Wait, I know you," and they built their life here.
Nice. Now, another challenge that I found was when my grandmother passed, who was my rock and my everything. When she passed away, I had a very hard time continuing as a parent. I would go to work, I would come home, go to bed, go to work, come home, go to bed. What strategies can you give to parents who are grieving but still have children to raise at the same time?
Yeah, that's hard, right? Because you have to be able to make sure that you put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And as parents, we tend to forget to do that. I learned that the hard way, right? When my mother got sick, I did in-home hospice. So she was here with me. She died in my living room in my arms. And at some point while caring for her, I think I forgot about myself. So if it wasn't for my family, my community, I would have lost myself. So I'm glad I had them. So I would say just, making sure that you acknowledge what's happening inside of you. You know when you're feeling different. You know when something is changing, and then taking a minute to remember you. Right? If you're going through a grief journey and you forget about yourself and you're focused on your children, they need you. You can't be your best self for anyone if you're not your best self to yourself first, right? We think a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not going to put the oxygen mask on myself first. If there's a problem on the airplane, I'm going to take care of my child first." There's a reason for that rule, because if you can't breathe, you can't help them. So thinking about it that way, and that's part of the rephrasing step in my framework, is looking at things differently. I remember to this day when my grandmother got sick and my mother had to go to Alabama, her and my father, and close up the farm on McCall Road, and then they named after my family, McCall, and bring my grandmother up here to live with us. I watched my mother do that and take care of her, and I watched her take care of my father when he got sick. So it was a no-brainer for me to take care of my mother when she got sick. But my grandmother, I distinctly remember my first ever real birthday party was when I was 5 years old. My grandmother had just come to live with us. She made me a chocolate cake and she brought it to my kindergarten class. I'm 56 years old and I remember that very, very vividly. So it's taking time to remember the things that matter to us, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our health. Because if we don't do that, we can't be good parents. We can't take care of our children.
That's true. And I hear people want to rush people through the grieving process oftentimes. And I have a friend who lost her son. I think he was killed in daycare, and so very traumatic. And he was maybe 2 or 3 years old at that time. And so every year on the anniversary of his death and as well on his birthday, she'll make a post about it. And people will inbox her and tell her it's time for her to get over it. And I'm like, you can never tell someone how to get over their grief or how to get through their grieving process or when it should end, And so for those people who are having a difficult time getting through it and may have somebody in their ear telling them it's time to get through it, like, what would you say to those people?
Yeah. So your grief journey is your grief journey. There's no limit. There's no set time. That's why when you talk to people and they say, "I'm still grieving," how long ago did the person pass? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because, you know, yes, there are phases of grief. Yes, there are steps, but we don't go through them in that order. And a grief journey, it can come in waves, right? You can be triggered, something can happen. You can, remember something, hear a song. It's so important that you take your time and go through your journey your way. If someone is rushing you through that journey, then maybe you need to rethink some boundaries with that person. Right. I'm not going to say here on your podcast and say get rid of them, but I'm going to say like there needs to be some boundaries, because we all have a process that we have to go through. And life is still happening at the same time. Life is not stopping because you're going through something. So it takes time. It's one day at a time. Sometimes it's one step at a time. Sometimes it's 1 hour at a time. It all depends. And I think it's so important to find or allow the right people to be in your space and allow the wrong people to leave your space. You have to protect your peace and be able to recognize who those people are. Sometimes, the people closest to you for one situation may not be the right people for another situation. Next year will be my 30th wedding anniversary. I know what I can talk to my husband about, and I know what he's not sensitive about. And okay, it's going to be somebody else. That doesn't take any love away from the two of us. It's just that this is not his thing. And he knows the same thing for me. But when we're going through a sensitive situation like grief, sometimes we don't recognize it. But what you said, that's a clear sign. If someone's saying, rush through it, then maybe that's not the person that you need at this time in your life. Something similar like that happened to me. When I was cleaning out my parents' apartment after my mother passed, they were in that apartment since 1975. Mommy died in 2022. And my father passed first. So you could imagine a life's history was in that apartment. Life's history. It was probably 2 weeks after mommy passed away. And someone said to me, "You're not finished cleaning out that apartment yet? When are you going to have it so we can turn it back over to the landlord?" I was like, if I have to pay the rent until I get this apartment cleaned out, this is 1975. But I was able to recognize and be strong enough to say to that person that, what they're saying is inappropriate. So I would say be aware. And also, if something doesn't seem right, don't be afraid to step away and put up boundaries when you need to.
I love that. And it is important to build the language to be able to say, this is not acceptable for you to have this conversation with me. It's
Yes.
not acceptable for you to try to push me through my grief process, because it doesn't matter. And it doesn't even matter if you've lost someone at that same relationship,
Right.
because people will say, well, I lost my mom too, and I'm over it. You should be over it. And it's like, that's not how it works.
No.
And even my brother and I came through the same hole, and we didn't grieve for my mom the same way.
Right.
I remember my brother, back when MySpace was a thing, had created a MySpace page and dedicated it to my mom. But he was 6 when my mom died, and I was 15. And
Wow.
so, and then he showed it to me, and when he showed it to me, it had the Dear Mama song on it and everything. I started crying, and he's rubbing my back, and he's like, I know, Kalisha, I know how you feel. I said, no, you don't know how I feel. I would have never dedicated a page to her on MySpace. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel for her the way he felt for her, because I had experienced so much more negativity. She had been on drugs most of my life. She had allowed abuse to happen to me and didn't do anything about it. She died in 1991. I didn't forgive her until 2019. So it was a longer process for me because I had experienced so much more. And for him, it was very different because he was 6 and didn't know a whole lot. All he had was love at that point.
Yeah.
But even though we came through the same hole, we experienced it differently. And so it doesn't have to be the same experience. And there's nothing wrong with somebody who may have a shorter grieving period than someone else, but it's also nothing wrong with the person who has a longer grieving period.
Yeah.
And people need to know that that's okay too.
Yeah. That's so true. And that's such a good example because everyone grieves differently. And no grieving period or no grieving process is wrong. It's how you do it, and as long as you do it in a way that works for you and you have the support you need, then it's okay. It's a great example.
Yeah. And I meant to say congratulations on your 30th anniversary.
Oh,
That's
thank
a
you.
big deal.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
next year. Trying to figure out what we're gonna do for it. Life is hard, and being married for 30 years, it takes a lot of work. We definitely had our ups and downs, but I'm grateful for the support and the love of I could not have gone through anything that I have endured without my family, without God, and without the community God's blessed me with.
Thank you so much for that. Now, what do you see going forward into the future? Like you just got another degree. Is there something different that you're planning on doing with the degrees that you have over the long term or even over the short term? What's the plan?
Yeah, so I'm still, in the nonprofit space. I'm CEO of a very large nonprofit here in New York City. I'm definitely still teaching. I love pouring into my students. But I want to spend some time elevating my books. My books are really, really critical in, my business and my ministry and my goals and my assignment, honestly. So I'm spending some time doing that, having some conversations around grief and loss, meeting with people in intimate circles, because everyone doesn't feel comfortable in large spaces, right? Some people need those small spaces. Grief and loss is a sensitive situation. And when I'm training people, I certify people to be grief coaches. One of the things that I say is when someone allows you in their space related to grief and loss, that's sacred, right? They're allowing you in a very delicate situation to talk with them. So I'm spending some time going around. I've done quite a few speaking engagements, but I want to have some intimate conversations now related to grief and loss to really help people get on the right track and get connected to a coach, whether it's me or someone else. It's really important that you have somebody that you trust and you can talk to.
I love that. And can you tell us a little bit more about your books and your business? Because I want people to know how to get in touch with you if they want to secure your services. I want people to know how to get the help because I only know of two grief therapists that I met in my 50 years of life. And so what you do is very special and it's needed. So if someone needs your help, how do they contact you? How do they secure your services?
Yeah, so that's really, really important because, finding a grief coach is key, particularly in the beginning of your grief journey. So I'm on Psychology Today, which is a national site where you can find therapists and coaches in all aspects of what you need. So, oops, did I lose you? Oh, there you are. So I lost you. I couldn't see you for a second. So you can look for me on Psychology Today under Restoring Bountiful Joy, and you see Dr. Darlene Williams. And through Psychology Today, we do individual grief coaching. We do couples therapy, couples coaching, and we can do that work either in person or online. So that is one direct way. You can also go to my website, which is www.drdarlenewilliams.com, drdarlenewilliams.com. And on the website, there are links to all the work that we do in corporate, with corporations, with businesses, individual bases, our events that we do. And I want to talk about that in a minute, but then also the books, the link to all the books that are on Amazon, and you can also order them directly from me. Events, I do a couple of signature events each year. So one is my pre-Mother's Day event, which is in honor of my mom. And we do that every year, the Saturday before Mother's Day. So it's the first Saturday of May. And in that event, it's amazing. Last year we had 50 people there. This year we had 150 people there. And we give out awards, mothership awards, to members of the community in honor of my mom. for their resilience as mothers, as parents, as community mothers. All the people we've honored may not have biological children, but they've been mothers to the community. And 2027, we're adding a component. We're going to add two scholarships in honor of my mother, and scholarship actually in my name for people who are doing work of service. Those scholarships, we hope to bless two individuals who are going to school. And then we're also starting a women's retreat, which is going to be really great. We have a community. It's called the Sovereign Sisters Collective. And this community is for women of faith to come together and have that safe space, to have that accountability, to have people that can pour into them. That's also on my website, but I'll send you the information so you put it in the show notes and give it to people. I'll add it in the chat. But we meet every Monday morning at 7 a.m. for prayer virtually so we can start our week off the right way. And then we meet every first Thursday of the month to gather and just talk and go through, whatever we're dealing with. I have a podcast also, The Debrief with Dr. D. I just did an episode yesterday about the historic win of the Knicks. But I talked about resilience and the resilience that the Knicks showed in their ability to keep going. So I have just different guests that come on the podcast. I would love to have you on the podcast. So we do a lot of different things. Everything is on the website, but those are just different things that I want to pull out.
Thank you so much for that. Now, you also have, I don't know, how many children do you have?
We have 3 children.
3. And then how many grandchildren?
2.
Nice. So how was that growing up? I mean, raising children, going to school, also having a husband, running a business, like you've really been doing it all. And I don't know how you balance all of that.
Yeah. So it's a lot. I'm not gonna say it's not. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for my grandchildren, new grandmother. So really love my kids. One is on their way over here now. But I think it's the support again, making sure that you don't take on too much, right? Some people may look at it and say it's too much. Some people may say, okay, I've done more. I did both my doctorate degrees, while, all my degrees, but I mentioned doctorate because those are really tough. And I did those while working. So that was a lot. My first doctorate, I did it while writing my first book. I wouldn't recommend that, writing a dissertation and a book at the same time. But I want to say having the right people to understand, like my husband went to college too while we were married. So we were able to help each other. But knowing that, okay, I can't do this activity now because I have to study. And that's the other thing too. It's self-discipline. Sometimes not being invited or saying no is a blessing. Some people feel like they have to be invited everywhere and go everywhere. I don't feel that. Last week, so we were invited someplace. I told my husband, I'm tired, just go. Because I just started back working. You have to learn how to balance. You have to be okay with not attending. You have to understand that no is a complete sentence. And you have to prioritize you. Self-care for me is not, it's not grooming, right? It's not going to get my hair done and going to get my nails done. Self-care is pouring into my spirit. Self-care is resting. Self-care is, having that peace and being able to be comfortable where I am. So I think to answer your question is it took me a long time to get there, but I was able to get to the place, and it's still a work in progress, where I have learned to prioritize my peace over everything.
And I'm learning now that you're a finisher. Like you start something, you finish it, which is huge because it's one of my biggest struggles. I can't even tell you how many books I've started writing and haven't finished yet, and may never finish. But you start something and you finish it, as evidenced by 14 books and 6+ degrees. So, like, for people, how do you get to that point? Yeah. For people who may struggle with completing the task, I know there's a lot of mental that has to go on with that. There's a lot of self-talk that has to go on with that. But you set a plan and you finish it. And not all of us are that way.
Yeah. You know, I think it's the plan you said. I live by write down the vision and make it plain. So my first doctorate, I wrote down Dr. Darlene Williams before I finished my degree. And I had a friend who called me Dr. Williams before I finished my degree. So speaking those things into existence is important to me. I do that now. I have a girlfriend who's in a doctorate program, and I'm calling her doctor, her last name. She's like, "Stop! I don't have it yet." So I'm gonna call you that until you graduate. That's what someone did for me. So writing down the vision, making it plain, not allowing anything to come into your way to deter you. Satan comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but also to pull us away from our destiny. So being able to recognize that, right, from a spiritual warfare perspective, but also, those boundaries are huge because something can block you from doing something and finishing something. So being able to just stay focused, right? Avoid the distractions, eliminate the distractions. I tell my kids that all the time. Recognize when something is a distraction, and being able to move away from that. And that's not easy all the time because distractions come dressed up in pretty colors. They come dressed up in pretty things and temptation and family and things you want to do. But we have to, when we have a goal, and when I have a goal, I try to make sure that I stick to it. And everyone may not like it or everyone may not understand the goal. But someone said a quote to me a couple of weeks ago. And the quote was, "When Jesus told you what your assignment was, it wasn't a conference call. It was a meeting with you and him." So why do we try to bring everyone into everything that's our assignment? And if they don't agree or they don't approve of it, we stop it or we don't start it or we don't do it or we don't give it our attention. It wasn't a conference call. It was your assignment. And I try to remember that.
That's so important. That's so good. And I love what you said a few moments ago about self-care is not just getting your hair and nails done. It's actually what you're doing internally, because that stuff impacts you so much more than the outside. For some folks, they need to fix up the outside to even feel good on the inside. But really, if you don't do the work to feel whole on the inside, it can shorten your life.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like being a functional alcoholic or a
Mhm.
functional, someone who has struggled with substance abuse. You can look good on the outside and be at work all day and be functioning well and then get home and excuse me, be miserable, right?
Yeah.
You can look well out externally, but not internally. So true.
So you teach, what courses do you teach at the university? I know that you said you teach some theology classes, and what courses do you teach?
So at CUNY BMCC, it's a city university, and it's a 2 year school, and I'm in the business department. And in the morning, I teach organizational management. So I teach students who want to be business owners and they want to be managers. So I teach them how to manage a business, what HR looks like, how to recognize different employee issues, how to structure a business, and what it means to really manage people in an organization point of view. One of the assignments I give them is to look at different corporations and different businesses and to identify where things may have gone wrong and how the organization was able to survive. In the evenings, I teach a new program. It's called nonprofit management. And, being in the nonprofit industry for, over 2 decades, I understand the work of nonprofit organizations and the great work that we do. So I teach about nonprofits, comparing them to for-profit organizations, why nonprofits exist, why they're so important, and how we serve the community. It always comes back to service for me. um, at Metropolitan College of New York. And tomorrow we have our commencement at one of our big arenas here in New York, the Jacob Javits Center. I teach in the master's program. So the master's of public policy and administration, and that's the program I graduated from that school. And I teach two classes. The research class, where people are actually doing their thesis, but I teach them how to do the research for it, how to develop their research question, which is the problem that they want to investigate and solve, how to actually collect the data and do the research, how to analyze the data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, and then how to take that data and write their report. So then the second class is how to teach them to put their thesis together and actually write their final master's thesis. So I teach that at Metropolitan College. In seminary, I teach four different classes for people who want to be ministers, who want to be pastors. They're related to leadership, right? So one of them is leadership in ministry, how to be a leader. Because when you're in ministry, when you're a pastor or you're a servant, you're a leader, and basic leadership um, skills are needed even in houses of worship, and people don't realize that. So I teach that. And then I also teach ethics, ethics in ministry. We have so many situations where ethics goes out the window. Misappropriation of funds, taking advantage of people in houses of worship, not realizing that that conversation is a confidential conversation, right? People are trusting you in ministry, just like I mentioned earlier about trusting you with grief and loss. That happens in ministry. So I teach ethics in ministry. And then I also teach two courses on missions work and what happened in the book of Revelation. So connecting ministry to being a servant and to going out there and serving people. So those are the courses I teach. I used to teach at one of our large universities, excuse me, out here, LIU, and I created a course for them, diversity and health disparities in the School of Health Professions. And that course is still going. They still have it, but it I was teaching students who wanted to go to medical school about health disparities in New York City and how disparities exist related to race, related to social economic status, where people live. And it goes back to service and understanding what you see on the surface is not always what it is underneath. So all the work actually connects back to caring for people, right? One of the things I taught in that class was when people go into the hospital for an asthma attack. I'm chronic asthmatic, and the doctor gives them albuterol or nebulizer to treat their asthma and then sends them on their way. And they come back the next week. We're wondering why the person is back in the hospital, because we don't address the root cause. We don't know why. Are there rodents in the home? Is something flaring up their asthma? Do they have air conditioning? Do they have a safe place to sleep? What is going on? So I teach people how to not look at what's happening on the surface, but look at what's happening underneath. Same thing with crime. In that course, I had one of my students, and I remember this distinctly, complain about individuals who may eat fast food every day, and they are not eating healthy. And that's why this population of people has so many chronic diseases. So I tried to get the students to see maybe they can't go out and get something safe to eat. Maybe there's crime in their area and it's not safe for them. Maybe they don't have money to go to Whole Foods and McDonald's is cheaper. Uh, there are so many factors that we need to think about when it comes to that. So when you ask that question, I think about where I teach and what I do. And you asked the earlier question, how I came to this work. I do a lot in a lot of different arenas, but everything is tied back to my purpose and my assignment.
Oh man, I love that so much. It's funny that you start talking about the disparities in healthcare, because I'm going to do an episode later on today where I specifically talk about that,
Oh, right.
because there are these disparities, and it's not, and you see some, the data shows that Black people are not doing well in a lot of these categories. And it's not because we're Black, it's because a lot of the systemic racism
Yep.
that has led us to have lower income, to have housing in poor communities, our schools to not be as good. Like I mentioned, I was going to move to Brooklyn. I was going to be teaching. I had an offer to teach 8th grade writing in Crown Heights, and an offer to be a dean of students in Bed-Stuy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really excited about that because my heart is to teach kids like me who may have grown up poor, and I didn't grow up, extremely poor, but at the same time, I was in lower income communities of color,
Mm-hmm.
and there's all the fast food restaurants around you that are not good for you. The
Right.
Whole Foods are not accessible
Right.
by foot. There are the food deserts in our areas,
Yeah.
and even the stores that they do have, the produce doesn't look as good as it does in other communities. You have to go outside of your community to get good quality food. And so those things that are plaguing us, if we don't start having those conversations, if we don't do something about it, then nothing changes, and we continue to keep that cycle going.
Right. Absolutely. That's so true. And it's important for people to understand that, because a lot of times we just focus on the stereotype of why this population is, you know, doing something and not even thinking about the reason why. So my first dissertation was public policy and administration. And so I'm a breast cancer survivor from when I was under 40. And I did that dissertation on breast cancer health disparities for African American women under age 40. And I did a study as to why African American women have a higher incident rate, which is occurrence of breast cancer, versus our white counterparts. And it was so many things about just not having access to medication, not having access to screening, not having access to clinical trials. And it was due to different disparities that we see in medicine. But just looking at the data, you wouldn't assume that. So I love that you're going to take a deep dive into that. That's so important.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that you are a breast cancer survivor. And when you mentioned under 40, I have a cousin who passed away from breast cancer at like 38 years old, and so it is a big deal. It is a big deal. Um, can you share some of the reasons why, how does it happen? Like what are some of the causes specifically with breast cancer? And I know we only have a few minutes left. I don't want to dig into this really big topic, but I would love if you could share some things that if there's something we can do to try to prevent it, what can we do if there's anything?
Yeah, I would say early screenings and advocating for yourself. I had to advocate for myself. It was a situation where, we had great insurance. Like, my husband worked for the city, so it wasn't an insurance issue of getting screenings. It wasn't an issue of, lack of income. I literally went to the doctor and I had lost a lot of weight. And when I went to the doctor, she said, when's the last time you did a breast exam? I said, I don't really do them that often. She said, well, you have lumps. I was like, no, I don't. She's like, yeah, you do. Because you lost weight, I'm able to feel them now. My breasts were very dense. I had 13 cysts between my two breasts. And I went to try to get the cysts, get a biopsy or get an exam done. And they said, sorry, we're not going to do that. A biopsy or MRI costs $5,000 to get done. You're under age 40. You don't have cancer in your family. It's probably just a fluid filled cyst. Don't worry about it. Now, at that point, I was the first one. But since then, like I just said, I had a cousin at 50 years old who just died of breast cancer, and many other people. So I had to fight. Like, we had good insurance. My husband worked for the city. This wasn't an insurance issue. It wasn't anything like that. They just said it costs $5,000. You're the first in your family. You're under 40. It can't possibly be breast cancer, and refuse. So I wrote letters to the insurance company. It took me a year of fighting just for them to do an MRI. And then I finally got it done. Then after getting the MRI done, they said, oh, it looks suspicious on the MRI, but still, you're under 40. You're probably not breast cancer. Don't worry about it. I had to fight again to get them to do a biopsy. I remember after finally winning the fight to do the biopsy, as the technician had me open, she said, it's probably just a fluid filled cyst. Don't worry about it. I'm sure I can just aspirate it. She's going in. She's like, oh my God, It's solid through and through. She goes to the next cyst. Oh my God, it's solid through and through. Wow, I'm so glad you fought. These are not, I can't aspirate. It's not fluid. You need surgery to remove these cysts. So to answer your question, what does it take? If I just sat there and listened to the doctor and not done anything, I might not be here today. So it takes advocacy and fighting for yourself, and forget what the statistics say. There are so many exceptions. I was the first one in my family, but just because I was and I was under 40 doesn't mean that it can't possibly be cancer.
Oh my God. And I hate that we have to fight so hard because most people won't do the fighting. They'll
Right?
just accept because we expect that the doctors have our best interests at heart and that they're going to do the best thing for us. And if they ran this one test and it came back with these results, then we accept that, you
Yeah.
know. And it wasn't until my grandmother passed away that I learned to start advocating, which is why I'm at the hospital with my daughter now. When I'm like, you won't be alone
Right.
while you're having a baby because somebody has to advocate for you. And
Yeah.
so those are some things that I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because you had a battle for a long period of time, but you didn't give up because you're a finisher. That is what you do. but you shouldn't have to do that when it comes to life-threatening illnesses. And I know that, like as you said, you probably wouldn't have been here. You know, my stepsister, and I normally don't refer to her as my stepsister, but I'm just saying stepsister because we don't have the same bloodline. But she was 25 when she had breast cancer, you know, and she was the first in her family. And I remember her being like, why me? There's nobody above me, no cousins, nobody else had breast cancer, but she had it, you know, and she's been fine now. She's a little older than me. I think she's 53 or something now. And so she's fine now. But it was that process she had to go through in order to make sure she got the care, because time is of the essence,
It sure is.
right? You fighting for that year, it could have been an easier process to get rid of them. And I'm glad you were able to. But for some people, they wait that year and it's detrimental,
Yeah.
because then even after you had the MRI, you didn't get the actions
Right.
that needed to happen.
Right. It's definitely a process, and I encourage anyone. Yes, the doctors may have our best interests at heart, but remember, they're practicing medicine. Practicing.
Yeah.
They're practicing on us. So
Yeah.
we have to fight and advocate for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and tell people again where they can find you so that they can connect with you. If they can find you on social media as well, feel free to give those handles as well.
Yeah. So on social media, it's Darlene Williams. Everywhere on Facebook and Instagram, I think it's Darlene Brown Williams, right? My maiden name rather, Darlene Brown Williams. My podcast is The Debrief with Dr. D. So search for that. And my website, if you go to my website, the links for everything is there. So the website is www.drdarlenewilliams.com. So it's drdarlenewilliams.com. You can find the links from my books on the website, the podcast, the work that we do with corporations and individuals. There's even a link on the website for Psychology Today if you want to join our coaching program. And we have group coaching, we have individual coaching. Everything is on the website. But of course, you can go to the different social media handles and you can see the work that we're doing and how we can possibly partner and work together.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Happy Juneteenth again.
Yes.
Again, congratulations to the Knicks. I love it.
Yes. And congratulations to you. I'm wishing your daughter well. I'll be praying for her throughout the day. But
I'm hoping this baby comes today.
Yeah. This baby's gonna come today and be healthy. You know what you're having?
A boy.
Okay. And be healthy and happy.
Yes. Thank you. Well, have a great rest of your day, and hopefully some folks will contact you and be able to take advantage of your services.
Awesome. Thanks for doing it today.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to take a 1-minute break, and I will be right back. Welcome back to the special edition of the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. I'm your host, Kalisha Washington, and it is our special Juneteenth edition. I am super excited to bring to the stage Dr. Leona. She is a chiropractor and a metabolic health strategist, speaker, author, and founder of Freedom Health Systems. So fitting that she's here on our Freedom Day. She has over 25 years of clinical experience, and she helps high-performing adults who look like they have it all together on the outside, but are silently struggling with weight gain, fatigue, poor sleep, chronic pain, blood sugar concerns, and a body that's no longer keeping up with the life that they are building. Welcome, Dr. Leona.
Happy Freedom Day!
Hey,
I
happy
even got dressed for
Juneteenth.
the occasion. There we go.
I
Can't really
love
see
it. I love it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you can make it. So tell the folks a little bit more about yourself, how you got into the work that you're doing, how you became a chiropractor, and then how you moved into wellness.
Woo, where do I start? Well, I'll just start with this. Freedom is my power word. My business is named after freedom. I had a dog named Freedom. So everything I do revolves around that. And especially in my health, it's about freedom in our health and our lives. So I deal with metabolic freedom, healing from the inside out. There's also emotional freedom, spiritual freedom, and we just really need to go deeper in our health and our lives. And it comes from my experiences with, my parents being sick, especially my dad, me having my own health crisis. And I know we'll probably get more into that, but this is just a big overview that, freedom has been a big deal from working in corporate America to finally running my own business. So freedom's my word. So
I love that. It's so funny because I'm like 25 years. You for sure on that black don't crack, right? Because I can't believe you've been working for 25 years in any field, but how did you get into becoming a chiropractor? Like did you grow up wanting to become a doctor, or what was that pathway?
Well, let me add that this is my second career. All right. So I
Wow.
was an engineer before I went into chiropractic school. So I'll give you the short version of the story. I went to Michigan State, got my degree in mechanical engineering, and landed a great job, benefits, all the things we strive for, right? Get your good job with benefits. And I did that. So I worked for the company. I won't say the name right now. Wasn't anything bad about it, but I won't put them out there. So I worked with this company for 4 years as a mechanical engineer, and I just wasn't happy in that corporate world. I felt locked in. I was crying in the parking lot, and I just wasn't happy. So that's where freedom set in. I didn't feel like I had freedom. I was told when to go in. I was told when to leave. I was told when to go to the bathroom. I was told when I could take vacations. And that just didn't fit with the type of person I was. So I lasted 4 years, but I just couldn't leave. I had to find out, okay, if I leave this job, then what? So I ended up in a car accident. And in that process, I went to a chiropractor, but he wasn't just a chiropractor. He was also a holistic healer. He was doing herbs and cooking classes. And at that time, I was dealing with chronic UTIs. Now, this is in the 90s now. This is my first health crisis. So I was dealing with chronic UTIs, severe menstrual cramps, like couldn't go to work cramps, and all the things. But he healed me from that. And I was like, ooh, maybe this is what I want to do. So I went back to school. I was like, this is it. So I went to school, learned all the things, opened my practice in 2001, something like that. I lose track. I guess, yeah, that adds up, 2026. So 2001. And it's been a journey, but I wouldn't have it either way, because I knew to name my practice Freedom Health Systems, because it was freedom from that corporate life, So that's why I named it Freedom back then. And then it just grew from there.
Wow. So tell us where you're from and what was your childhood like, or your upbringing like, to lead you to a mindset even that I'm going to college, I'm going to get this degree. And even when I want to pivot, I'm going to another college to get another degree.
Well, my dad was in the military. He was in the Air Force. So I grew up all over the world. So I was born, I won't go through the list, but I lived in about 7 or 8 different places, 4 different high schools. So I think that played a role in my quirky, kind of weird person I am today because, I was everywhere. I'm a little bit of West Coast, East Coast, North, South, and overseas. So I got all the personalities. So
Mhm.
my dad was in the military, and I had the advantage of living around the world at a very young age and being exposed to different cultures and different places. But growing up, I had that standard family. Um, follow the rules, get your grades, don't think outside the box, don't be a menace to society, don't think for yourself, go with the flow. And that's what I ended up doing. But I ended up getting in trouble in school a lot because there was a part of me that said, there's a rebel in me, this doesn't feel right. And but it wasn't until I was older till that person came out. So I grew up just being, this is what you do, this is what you say. And that's what I did until I went, to corporate America. And that's when I realized this isn't me. I got to get out of this. So that's
And it's well, I feel like a lot of us have had that experience where we get into corporate America. It is not fitting. Oftentimes, it's not as accepting of Black women in predominantly male dominated industries. And we become entrepreneurs now. Like we go and we did the education thing, and now we're like, you know what? And now I need to start a business because I need to be able to help people in the way that I want to without the stress of,
yeah.
the bureaucracy or, the systems that are not meant to help us to be successful. Um, but so moving around. My dad was Air Force too. So
Okay.
shout out to your dad.
All right.
Yeah. And but he didn't raise me, and he got out the Air Force before I was born. But at the same time, like, it shows that sometimes there's some things that we learn from our childhood. And I know that a lot of people in the military have the discipline to start and finish things. And I was just on the last episode talking about Dr. D is a finisher. And now I'm with you and you're a finisher. You started the degree, you finished it. You started another one, finished it. You started this business now. But tell us about the catalyst for what you're doing now in the wellness space.
Yeah, the first catalyst was in engineering. When I was an engineer and went to a chiropractor and got healed of my chronic UTIs. So then I went to school, did all the things again, got the good grades, it was that same cycle. And then I graduated in 2001, started my business. I worked for a couple other people for a while. Then I was like, I wanted to work for myself, create my own rules, freedom. Can't see it. But anyway, I wanted my freedom, just to run the practice the way I saw would benefit, not just for me to be able to help people, but to create an environment that people want to be helped as well. So I guess after 2001, opened the doors, did all the things, and did what I was supposed to do again. And it was so long ago. I'm trying to remember, but I just know moving forward, I went through the struggles because what they don't teach you in schools and in life is how to run a business. You think, turning on get the key to the building and that's it. But there's marketing and there's learning and there's losing money and earning money. So I went through that whole cycle. And I believe with the stress, having my children, and fast forward to 2008, I had my first son, and I was 80 pounds overweight, and I didn't grow up overweight. But after I had my child, I was 80 pounds overweight. I learned I was pre-diabetic with fatty liver disease. I was tired, digestion. I'm thinking just like everybody else, you're getting older, you're stressed, you're tired, you're over 40, because I had my kids at 36 and 40. You're getting older. But again, something inside of me was like, nah, there's got to be another way. That seed was planted again. Like, this is why you got into this.
Mhm.
And by that time, I was learning about natural health, not just treating the symptoms. I stopped taking medications in the 90s. So I knew there was a better way. So I reversed all that naturally. And next thing I know, once I learned what it took from someone who ate right, exercised, and still ended up sick, I was like, okay, there's something to this. And then I realized it was the emotional, the spiritual, it was the lifestyle that led to where I was at that moment in time. So then my practice changed to not just, okay, here's your vitamin C and your vitamin D, and go home, eat less, exercise more. It got deeper. Who do you have to become to not just get healthy, but maintain health? It's not just foods and Coca-Cola that'll make you look old. Your attitude can make you look old. Your negativity, your fear can make you look old. So it really evolved to becoming that person who will make those healthy choices. And not only did I lose 80 pounds and regain my health, because I had fatty liver, gall, I had it all, digestive problems. I don't think I would be here right now if I didn't learn what I learned and applied it. So, I'm very passionate about this. And a lot of it isn't just putting people on protocols, is really getting people to a point where they want to be healthy and they're willing to do what it takes. And it became breaking those generational curses, because I didn't come from a healthy family. My mother passed of breast cancer and she was only 63. I'll be 55 next month. So I'm like, woo, she wasn't much older than I am now. My dad passed away of diabetes in 2020. So growing up, I saw what illness can do to the body. So when it happened to me, I was like, oh no, I don't want this. Having my kids at 36 and 40, I was like, I got to get it together, because I joke around and say I had my own grandbabies. I had my own. I skipped the children, had my own grandchildren. So they're 18 and 14 now. And I realized that was my why. And I didn't want to end up the way my dad did, but diabetic, blind, amputated, kidney failure. So that became my mission, and helping others do the same.
Those are some of the things that are really complicated, but they impact the Black community a lot.
Yes.
And people would want you, historically, they thought it was hereditary or genetic. And I'm like, it's not. It's the patterns that we do. It's a lot of times we pass down the same eating habits. Yeah. We pass down the same exercise habits. But what I heard you say is it starts in the mind first, right? Because you said, I got to get people to want to do the things that I want, that I'm going to tell them to do, even before I tell them what to do. And so how do you help somebody get the right mindset about being as healthy as they can?
Ooh, that's the challenge, I tell you, especially for our people. Sorry, I love you. I love everybody. But the thing is, we can be very stubborn, all right? So sometimes you got to get through. And a lot of times I won't say everybody, kind of goes through a point where we learn the hard way. And I want to reach people before that point, because there's people that just don't know what they don't know. So that's why I spend time on my podcast and educating and YouTubing to educate. And then they'll hear it and be like, I didn't know that. My blood pressure is supposed to be high sometimes. My cholesterol is protective. The food in the grocery store is poisonous. So a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. So it comes from really opening their eyes. That's why I spend a lot of time educating. And then there's people that do know, they just don't know where to get help. And then there's people that do know and don't care. I can't help those people. And then there's people that do know, are doing what they can, but they're doing the wrong things, because it's the things that don't work for them. So that's where I help people. I help people that don't know where they don't know, the people that do know and want help, and the people that are doing the wrong things, and I steer them in the right direction. So I got my work cut out.
Oh, for sure you do, for sure. Now, there's so many like fad diets and stuff out there. Mm-hmm. There was the Atkins back in the days, and there's always something.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? Like eating according to your blood type. I don't know if you have opinions on that.
I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. Everybody asked me that at some point, because it's a very common question.
Yeah,
and so I have to learn.
Excited when they talk about like, I'm eating according to my blood type now, and I'm like, okay, but I don't know how it impacts, if it does or it doesn't.
It does, but not for the reasons they believe it does. For example, say in the blood type, and I think it's O. I did get the book because I have to see what people are seeing. And I believe with O, you can eat meat, but don't eat this and that. So a lot of times people will change their diet, but they're getting rid of the fast food. They're drinking more water. So it's really that part that is helping them, not necessarily that they're eating for their blood type, because there's some O types. I'm an O type, but I can't eat a lot of meat. So it's not a one size fits all. It's not for all O's, because even within the O's, and I just remember O because I'm a type O, but even within the O's, there's some uniqueness within all of us. So it's not that easy. People want that one thing. So sometimes it's a little sprinkle of the Atkins, a little sprinkle of the um, eat right for your blood type, a little sprinkle of the paleo, the keto, and a vegan plant, is all that. We need a little everything. We need to learn how to piece it together. And it's like we got all these, let me just use analogies. You got all these puzzle pieces. I got your pieces, you got some of my pieces, and we got a third person with some puzzle pieces, but we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together, but I got some of yours and the other person's. The goal is like, Kalisha, let me, you got my piece and I got yours. Here we go. Oh, wait. And we spend our lives trying to find our pieces and put them together that work for us. So it might be a little of this and a little of that, but we have to learn how to piece it together. That's the problem.
I love that. So it should be more customized and more individualized instead of just, let me go read this book or watch this video and then change my lifestyle behind that.
Exactly. You might be a paleo, keto, type O, blood type diet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
water.
I'm
And
O
water.
positive also. Yeah.
With some sour sop on the side. So it's like we got all this stuff out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard you say that a lot of health challenges that have come through your family were the thing that made you say, you know what, let me really spend some time focusing on this. And I remember you saying you lost something like 80 pounds. What was your process to do that?
It took me a year. So that's another thing. People try to look for, I want to, they'll be in the process, but if it doesn't happen in a short amount of time, they give up. You got to keep going. It's a journey, and you got to focus on the action, not the result. So what I was just doing was finding out what works for me. So it was a combination of blood work, knowing what's going on, because a lot of people are just guessing and assuming they need iron and they have a thyroid issue and they got hormone issues. So the biggest thing is testing. You got to find out. Test, don't guess. And the second thing is applying that. You find out, okay, I need liver support. My body doesn't digest meat well. I need more enzymes. I'm not drinking enough water. I'm dehydrated. I don't have enough minerals. You got to feed your body what it needs. And then over time, the result was healing. So I was doing a little paleo. I was doing a little keto. There were days I was vegetarian. I didn't eat meat. There was days when I ate meat or fish or chicken. So the thing is, there was no one thing that I did. And another thing I want to add is everything has stages, because a lot of times people just focus on the diet and they'll lose 10, 20 pounds with just the diet alone. And then they plateau. So when people start to plateau, they got to realize you got to go deeper. You need to detox. You got heavy metal detox. You might have parasites. You might not be sleeping well. You might have some underlying genetic component. You got to find that out and learn how to deal with it. So I would say a part of it was diet and exercise, doing what was right for me more specifically. And the other half was healing the other things, getting rid of the toxins that were in my body, the biotoxins. And then another part was the emotional stuff, just working on being a better person. You can lose weight by just being happy. I mean, happiness is good too, because I was going through a stressful divorce, so I was going through stuff, single motherhood and all those things in that process, losing my parents. But at the same time, I had to focus on that foundation of health in all the categories, not just one or two.
Yeah, because I heard them say that laughter burns calories too, and like
Yep.
those things. If you are, and I believe so much in the power of the mind and the brain to do a lot of the work for you, and But if you believe that you're not going to be successful, you're probably not going to be successful. But if you
Mhm.
believe that you can, and you set yourself up for success in that way. And I know a lot of it, a lot of us who don't feel like we have the willpower to do it, sometimes people have tried different things and start and stop and start and stop. How do you help those folks who are like, I know I want to get it together. I got a lot of weight that I want to lose. And I've tried the Jenny Craig and the Weight Watchers and all of these things before and haven't been consistent or successful. And I believe each one of those programs will work if you follow it all the way. But what do you say to those folks who are like me, who do need to lose weight and want to lose weight, but haven't done the work to do it?
Find out why you're struggling with the weight. If you have a problem falling off of a program, you have a hard time being consistent with anything, there's a reason why. Are you bored with it? Are you just not satisfied? Because some of these diets out there are for weight loss, but it's not to get you healthy. You can lose weight and not be healthy weight loss. Because one thing I like to say is you don't lose weight to get healthy, you get healthy to lose the weight. So there's a lot of programs out there that aren't focused on health. So that's the number one problem. A lot of us are in the know, but are doing the wrong thing. So that's the category you're in. I know I'm not doing I know I don't feel right. I'm doing the work, but you're doing the wrong work. You're not doing what works for Kalisha. You got my puzzle pieces, or you got someone else's puzzle pieces, try to put it together. You need your pieces.
Yeah.
And if you had to define what I do, that's what I do. Yeah. So that's really the big problem. It's really not the program. You might be on the wrong program, or you might be working on the wrong thing at that time.
Yeah, because I'm 50, so I'm hyper focused on what does my body need for certain things. I don't want to have to wear glasses. I'm like, should I be eating more carrots so that my eyes stay strong? Like, there are things I want the specific outcome, so I try to eat the thing that gets to the specific outcome, but I don't have like a overall plan. I know that I somebody gave me some test that said I had heavy metals in my body, which I agree with. I believe. And they were talking about grounding. I've heard about grounding outside, but then I've also cilantro is one of those things that's really good for helping your body get rid of the heavy metals. So guess what? A couple of days ago, I bought some more cilantro. But I need to get myself on a plan instead of just I'm gonna pick this thing for this purpose at this moment. So I don't know if you have any suggestions on stuff like that.
Again, my clients will say this. My favorite answer is depends. I wish it was that easy. Oh, you want to detox heavy metals? Do cilantro. It might be something else. You might be continuously exposing yourself to heavy metals. So what's the point of trying to detox when you're constantly putting it in your body by drinking out of plastic bottles? And I don't even know anymore because I've taken it out of my life, but it could be in our dishes, our nonstick cookware.
Yeah.
It's in the environment. So first we got to be aware of the environment. We're in a very sick, toxic environment. We got a lot stacked against us. And I wish it was as easy as, okay, have some cilantro and you're going to be okay. You mean well, but again, it's about that knowledge and understanding what your body needs. We know about the things that are out there, but none of us know about what's happening metabolically inside. So for example, you talked about eyesight. So it made me think of a story. I remember I was probably in my early 40s. I think my second child was born at the time. And this was when the TVs, you had it with the guide was scrolling. And then if you missed what comes on channel 2, you had to watch till it scrolled back.
Yep.
So I remember watching it one day and I couldn't see it. It was blurry. So what do we think automatically? I'm getting older. There goes my eyesight. But at that time, I was healing my liver. I was heavy in lead poisoning. Okay. My mother had it. And then some things can get passed down through, the maternal blood. So a lot of our illnesses get passed down. So I ended up heavy metal toxicity, lead specifically. So as I was just not thinking about my eyesight and sitting there eating carrots or anything like that, like a lot of us do, I think I was probably doing carrot juice. I don't remember. I was doing a lot of things back then. But long story short, I just was doing what I was doing, healing my fatty liver, giving my body what it needs and getting rid of what it doesn't. And then one day I sat down to watch TV. I was like, I could see it. Wow. And I'm 54 now. And I mean, I got my readers, because some things they're making stuff smaller.
Mhm.
So I do have readers, but I still don't wear glasses. So, it's nice that when I healed my liver, my eyesight came back. But that's what we got to know. But for
Yeah,
someone else, it might be carrots. If for someone else, it might be something else. But the thing is, we got to just focus on getting healthy.
I'm so glad you said that because that's going to the root cause. The
Yes.
root cause, like putting on glasses, yeah, you can see the stuff, but going to the root cause of healing the fatty liver to improve the eyesight,
Hmm.
like I would have never known that those two were connected,
Yeah.
and I know that when you work on the liver, you will lose weight and stuff like that. You'll probably go to the bathroom a little bit more, but I never imagined that it would help your eyesight. But that's huge.
And that's the thing. Many people don't know that. A lot of people don't think we can reverse diabetes. We can reverse so many of these chronic diseases. But we grow up learning math and calculus and we learn to drive, but we don't learn how to treat our bodies. And we have to relearn. And by the time we're in our 50s, we're like, what in the world is going on?
Mhm.
But this stuff should have been taught to us. You talk about parenting, this needs to be a part of parenting. And if the parents don't know and they're feeding their kids Cheez-Its, this
And chicken nuggets.
I know. So what are you doing? You're setting the kid up. Another story. Do I have a filter on this show?
No.
Okay. So I remember I say things that might not be appropriate. So forgive me in advance for who's listening. But I remember being at a soccer game with my kids. They play soccer, and I was sitting on the bleachers. And there was this obese child sitting there eating this junk food. And I was like, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but it's how I felt. I was like, that's abuse. They're setting up this kid. I mean, he was huge. And I know that it could be controlled if the parents made better choices. Maybe they didn't know, but
Yeah.
that's abuse to me. It's not always just hitting the child. We gotta feed our kids health because you're setting them up for a lot of these problems in adulthood. I know my parents did the best they knew how.
Mhm.
Okay, I grew up giving my dad insulin shots. So at a young age, I was like, I don't want it. He was in and out the hospital. And I'm like, inside, I was like, I know this isn't the way. I just didn't know what to do about it until I got older. But this is
Yeah.
what's happening. So as parents, we got to get healthy, teach our children to be healthy so they can have a much better future. But a lot of us unknowingly, I'll just give the benefit of the doubt here, are really harming our kids with food.
Yeah. Because we're giving them what they want instead of what they need. And even like you said, the stuff in the grocery store is killing folks. You give them these Lunchables that are highly processed. Yeah, you make it very easy to grab a Lunchable, throw it in their backpack, but it's no good for them,
Hmm.
And there's a lawsuit in California. I'm from California, and there's a lawsuit where in San Francisco, I think it's the San Francisco DA that's suing a lot of the food industry, and because they said that life expectancy is even shorter for poor people in San Francisco. I want to say it's like 76 for poor people, and wealthier people is like 84, 86 or something like that. But you're losing years of your life because of the stuff that you eat. And it's
Hmm.
intentional. The food that we ate growing up in the 70s doesn't have the same ingredients that it has today,
So true.
because now it's even higher processed so that people will become addicted to it, so that people will want more of it and crave more of it. And then it also will have a longer shelf life,
Mhm.
and some of the studies have shown that a lot of the people that own the tobacco industry have now purchased a lot of the companies that are in the food industry. So,
Mhm.
and there's no Surgeon General's warning on your Fruit Loops, you know. So people are set up for failure in that way, and kids know McDonald's before they can even recognize their own name.
Yeah.
They know those arches, and they
Yeah.
want and people. I'm like, I don't even like the McDonald's fries. I don't even know what we're talking about here, But at the same time, it has to be we have to create generational wellness, you
Yes.
know, and
Hmm.
pass it down from generation to generation. I'm so glad that my daughter is setting my grandkids up for success. I mean, we're going to the park. She got a baggie with cut up celery and carrots and apple slices and oranges, and that's what she's giving to them. And they take it and they're eating it. Other kids might be eating chips, but we're not eating chips. We're not eating the hot Fritos, no Takis, no none of that stuff. It's going to be the fruits and vegetables. And my grandkids love it because that's all she's ever given them, you
Yeah.
know?
You made a good point because a lot of parents will think, oh, but my kids don't like it. Da, da, da. And I'm like, who's buying the food? Who's feeding the food? The kids are going to eat what you provide.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm glad that she's doing that. But yeah, we need to understand because the food, we want to trust the grocery stores and all those things. But now, you were talking about our food in the 70s is a lot different. Genetically modified foods, I believe, didn't come around until 2000. Now we may be eating well. We're eating our watermelon and it's seedless and everybody and then they have the nerve to call it organic seedless watermelon. And then a lot of these big corporations own the organic market.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes eating organic is not enough. So as I was saying before, we have so much stacked against us. There's levels to this. Eating better, not fast food, is progress. It is a lot better than McDonald's. But again, we have a lot of things that we have to incorporate in our lifestyle so that we can not only break these general curses, but also know what we're up against in this world.
Yeah. And you said also that your mother passed away from breast cancer at 63.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just talking about this on the last episode with Dr. D because she battled breast cancer and won, but it was a struggle to even get diagnosed, And
Mhm.
so first of all, we don't go to the doctor as often as we should most of the time. We're not doing the annual checkups. And as Black people, we're so busy and oftentimes working so hard, and a lot of us struggling financially, and so then we're working so hard and we don't take care of ourselves. But if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not in position to take care of anybody else.
Yeah.
And so I love that you are you're doing the wellness work to help people get themselves in a better position. How old was your mom when she got diagnosed with breast cancer?
How old was she? 63.
And she got diagnosed and then passed away right after.
Pretty much a
Wow.
month later. Yeah. Because what happened was it was more the fear and the shock because she was dealing with my dad was sick most of my life. So I got two parents that represent two ends of the spectrum. I got my dad that was like, you only live once. And he did what he was going to do. And he was only just an extra shot of insulin away. So he was like, you only live once. Don't tell me what to eat better. That was my dad. My mom, she was the one that was trying to do the good things, but she was doing things like the artificial sweeteners because she was told it was healthier. She was doing she was trying to do her best, but it ended up not being the best. All right. She was eating Chick-fil-A because we were told that they were using real oils. It was a healthier fast food. Remember that? I don't know if they still reach that. Sorry, Chick-fil-A, I'm calling you out. But anyway, so she was doing the things that she thought was good. And she had chronic, went in her 40s. And I remember she was always thin, but then she hit her 40s and we're told, okay, menopause weight. So she started gaining weight that wouldn't come off. And then she had high blood pressure that wouldn't resolve itself. So the thing is, she was trying to do the things, eat less, move more, do what most people do. I'm still in school. I haven't been able to help her yet. I'm still learning, living my life. But she was doing what most people were trying to do. And then when she was like, okay, my blood pressure is high. Let me go ahead and get on meds. But the meds made her sick. Again, the medications is just trying to manage the blood pressure, but it wasn't now looking back. This was after she passed away when I was able to put it together. So the blood pressure, I remember her blood pressure made her sicker. She didn't like it. So she didn't know what to do. And I was helping her with what I knew how to do at the time. But, it was just too little too late. And that's one of my well, another one of my missions is like I wasn't able to help my mother, but now I help other people that have had cancer and diabetes. So I'll shorten the story, but back to my mom. Now I realize her blood pressure was because that cancer was growing in her body. So here she is at
Wow.
stage 4, like just like Dr. D. They never tested her for it. They just wanted to find this med and that med. But now I believe that her high blood pressure and the other things that she was going through, her chronic headaches, was because that cancer was growing in her body. And by the time they told her, she shut down. Like, I've been fighting this for years, trying to do all the things, and she was gone a month later. So
Wow.
I'm upset, that that happened. And I wish I was in a position where I could have helped her catch it. Because what people don't realize is by the time you're at stage 4, you may have had that in your body for 5, 10, or more years. So cancer
Yeah.
doesn't just grow like that. So she had it for a while.
And was she getting the annual breast exams, or
I don't remember. She was one of those that were frustrated with the doctors. Like, she probably did. She, as a parent, she didn't tell me about that stuff. Even though I was going to chiropractic school and learning the things and reading the books, she never shared her health with me. She might have come in for an adjustment here and there, but when it came to private matters, I think it's that generation.
I was just don't say that. I was
They,
just gonna say
she kept so much from me. And I was like,
that.
why didn't you tell me? Here I am surrounded by holistic healers. I may not have known at the time, but I was going to school. Maybe I could have helped you, but she didn't tell
Mhm.
me anything. And I'm
Yeah, that
devastated.
generation just didn't talk about their health
Suffered in
problems at all.
silence.
Yeah,
Yeah, she did.
yeah,
She suffered in silence. She kept it to herself.
yeah. So, what did you decide to do differently with your children that other parents can pattern after?
Oh. I'm thankful I had my children older, 36 and 40. So I kind of joke around and say I'm a little extreme. So, like, I had the home birth and all those things. So I wanted my babies at home. I was like, and I had a backup midwife in case something did happen. I don't have a complete mistrust of doctors. I know they come in handy for emergencies, but as far as something as natural as childbirth, I wanted to allow my body to do what it was designed to do. So both my children were born at home. I did the breastfeeding. I went against the grain. I even got picked on for making my own baby food. So they never had that jar. Have you ever tasted jarred baby food? I'm like, why would I
It's
feed my
disgusting.
child that? That stuff is
And
nasty.
you're starting them off, not even a year old, with highly processed food
No,
when you could just blend it up.
exactly. And they loved it. And to
Mhm.
this day, they still love good food. Now they're older, they're teenagers. Do they get the stuff? Yes. But every now and then they're like, "Ugh, I need a break." They know it doesn't feel good. Like my son, he's
Yeah,
working, makes his own lunch. So the effort that I put in, they appreciate good food and good health. But that's what I did. I just taught them at a young age, eat your salads, drink your water. But, now that they're older, I just have to learn to just let go and just let them do what they want to do when they're not around me. But that's what I did. I served them good food. They ate good food. It doesn't have to be complicated.
yeah, I love that. It feels like it takes more time. But if you were to, you know, I remember when I made the transition away from fast food, in large part. And I thought, like, it's going to take so much more time for me to cook my own food instead of hitting the drive through. And then I found, like, I just put together some systems that really worked. Like, I'll put some biscuits in the oven, put some like bacon in the oven, and then go get in the shower. By the time I get out the shower, that the oven is done. I scramble an egg, put it in that biscuit, and I'm gone instead of hitting the drive. And then you get to the drive through and you're waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes
Mhm.
anyway because it's a long line there because everybody decided to skip making their own food. And
Yeah.
so and I was like, man, mine tastes so much better than it does at any of the fast food restaurants anyway. So why would I continue to do that? But
Yeah.
it does take a reframing in the mindset to say, hey, I can do this and it'll be better. And then it's making a decision to do it. I have a friend who's like you, and she's a nutritionist, and she was on my podcast on MLK Day, and she started growing her own food. And this is the reason why I had her on there, because she was a nutritionist. We were teachers together. But she said, I trained my kids' palate to enjoy the fruits and vegetables. She's like, when I give them oatmeal, we put blueberries on it. We're not putting, she's like, maybe we'll put a little honey or something like that. But she's like, we don't usually put sugar on it. They're accustomed to having it this way. And she said that even when they're at school, they're eating the school lunches. But she's like, that little bit it's not the consistent thing. What's most consistent is the fruits and vegetables that she has at home. And so I know that we have the power to make change happen for our kids if we take the time to do the work.
Yeah, you made some good points. It's like not making it complicated. That starts in our mind. We kind of, you know, it's like it happens in the mind first, and you're like, I ain't doing that. So we don't even, a lot of people don't even try. But, I grow food as well. I have my garden, I got chickens and everything. So there's a price to convenience. People think it's saving time and saving money, but at the end of the day, there is a cost for convenience. So it's better just to take that extra time to start creating your own meals at home. And that reminds me about when you asked me about my children. They see their friends eating hamburgers and French fries, but they realize, hey, we can make that at home. And it was a whole lot better than the hamburgers and stuff that they were eating out there. So they'll make their own pizzas. And as a benefit, my sons know how to cook now. I see them hooking some stuff up. I'm like, woo, all right. Because, as growing up, they were in the kitchen with me. It wasn't like, get out the way, get out the way. No, I let them be in there and dropping the forks and the spoons because they were watching. I'm not a parenting guru, but having my kids there while I was preparing, they knew how to prepare their foods. I allowed them to help me. And now they're pretty self-sufficient when it comes to that. And they can make good choices. Like if I send my son out grocery shopping, he knows what to get. It's amazing. 18.
Wow. That's special.
Yes, 18. He's not ashamed of it. He's not ashamed of it.
What state are you in?
I'm in Georgia, outside of Atlanta. Yeah.
Okay. Because you said you have your own chickens. And I'm like, okay, chickens. My brother has some chickens. He's in LA as well, South Central Los Angeles. And he has, I think, 6 chickens, and, they lay eggs. He doesn't have any roosters or whatever, but,
Yeah,
it's good to be able to have your own food. I would love to have a farm. I live in like the Las Vegas area. I can't wait to have a farm, but I also need some farmers because still don't feed myself out there.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I wouldn't have any other way. I got the chicken coop in the area. I just lay eggs. I just eat the eggs. And then I have a small area, maybe about 600 square feet. And I'm just growing a few things, tomatoes, peppers, blueberries. It's nothing fancy. And is it a lot of work? It can be, especially when them bugs get out there and start tearing stuff up. But when you start eating those cucumbers and tomato, man, it is nothing like it. I go get fresh blueberries every morning. So I'm out there right after, a call I'm on every morning. So around 7 o'clock, I'll go out there and pick my blueberries. And fresh, ain't nothing like it in the world, So I got tired of spending $8 for a blue. Like, I'm just gonna grow. So I got like 5 blueberry bushes. I'm like, there we go. I'm good now.
Man, I can't even imagine, because the blueberries, they're not even sweet because they're trying to mass produce them so they can sell more. And
Right.
they just don't. The stuff doesn't taste good. It's not good quality food anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
I
the
need to move
same.
to the South
Even
because it's
more organic.
108 degrees out here today. Like we
Yeah.
can't, it's dry. We can't grow the same stuff out here. But I definitely need to move to the South so I can grow my own food.
There's a few things you can grow inside, maybe some sprouts or something. I would do something. Do some
Okay.
inside stuff. Get you go on Amazon. You can get you a little greenhouse, get the light, and just grow some lettuce or some sprouts or something. Yeah. Or
Okay.
some mini, what are they called? Super greens. It's like you put a lot of seeds in it and it just turns into something you can just sprinkle on your salad. Real easy.
Okay.
And you get so many nutrients for that. That's where I started. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So basically what you're saying is there's never an excuse.
No excuses.
There's always a way
You can
to
always
make
do
something happen.
something, because we have this all or none mentality, but we got to do something. And people don't realize that as soon as you start doing something, then you have the energy to do the next thing. We try to jump from A to Z, but we really have to follow the recipe, take those steps, find out where we are, and then go from there. Don't try to be me. When I'm coaching my clients, I'm kind of like, I'm like way up here, and my clients, and I tell them, don't compare yourself to me. I was where you are, but this is what it takes. And I'm with them every step of the way.
I love that so much. When you think of when you take one step in a direction, then your brain will go to work figuring out other ways for you to take the next step.
Yes.
And it becomes this domino effect in a positive way when you take that positive, you stack the positive on top of the positive, and it just keeps going. And the end result is going to be good.
Yeah, it's like a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And then
So
once you get to that point, there's no turning back. There's no gaining the weight again. If I do, it's like, real quick. I'm not going to, so if I get stressed, I know, all right, let me get this under control. Because the thing is, a lot of people allow external circumstances to dictate what they need to do inside. But we have to learn to navigate that. The heartbreak's not going to go away. The stress isn't going to go away. The financial trouble, all those things, they come and go. But we have to learn to navigate. And I like to do this dance all the time with my clients. We just got to learn how to, dance through it all and navigate. But we're not taught that. We're taught all or none. You're healthy or not. We have to be
yeah,
on that journey. Yes.
yeah. Now, what specifically do you help your clients with that my listeners can, like, if you have a program where they can either purchase or join a community or anything like that, where they can get your help and assistance?
Well, I totally help people that know they are ready to get real health. And what I do is very deep. I meet people where they are, but at the end of the day, it's not just about helping them reverse chronic diseases like, weight loss resistance, diabetes. I work with cancer survivors. I work with people with maybe stage 1 or 2 cancer. Because it's at the end of the day, it's not like I cure cancer. I don't do that. And I can't even say that. But I can fix the metabolism that is feeding that condition. So we got to get to the root. So first, the person has to be willing to say, okay, I am ready to find out what's going on in my body and do the work. And so that's what I do. And that's what I help people do. And then I do lab testing and understand I'm not guessing on anything. And I don't have like a protocol that fits everyone. If I'm working with 30 clients, there's 30 different protocols. So people got to understand this is an individualized thing. Are there people out there that want the quick fix and do it quick and easy? Yeah, but I'm not the doctor for that person. And if they want to learn more about that, I have a quiz just so people can see where am I at in this health spectrum? Because there's people that are unhealthy and don't even know it because they can still walk and talk and move. Like I said, there's a lot of diseases out there, heart disease especially. Usually the first symptom of heart disease is a heart attack. So we got to be able to catch those things early. Cancer can live in your body for years before you even know it. People can live with diabetes for a long time. Some people are choosing to live with their illness, but you don't have to do that. We need to step up and see what's going on before we wait until it's too late. And I have a metabolic reset quiz where people can see where they're at. Do they need support with their gut? Do they need support with their hormones? They need to see where they're at. And it's a questionnaire. And it's not a diagnostic tool or anything, but it'll help people say, a lot of people have completed the quiz and they're like, oh, dang, I didn't think of that. What, bloating is unhealthy? What, I shouldn't be burping? So things like that. I'm not sleeping 8 hours. So if they're interested in taking that quiz, they can go to the metabolicresetquiz.com and they can start there.
I love that so much. I never heard about this whole leaky gut thing until I was watching Red Table Talk some years ago. And they were like, our whole family has leaky gut. I was like, dang, well, what is that? I never heard of that before.
Yeah.
But there's been so much talk lately about healing your gut, but can you explain a little bit about what that is and what it would entail? Like how do people get a leaky gut problem? And like what are some of the things they can do to help themselves with that?
Well, the first thing is leaky gut is like a generic, a general term for digestive issues. But what's happening is because of long-term stress, years of bad diet, again, we're eating a lot of foods that the body isn't designed to eat or digest. So the body has to work hard to process these chemicals that we're putting in our food, in our bodies. So leaky gut is just damage from all the acids. So if you're drinking Coke, for example, it destroys the lining of your abdomen, of your stomach, of your digestive system. So it's like we say leaky gut and we want to take a probiotic and hope everything's okay, but it's beyond that. So sorry, I'm just real blunt. But the thing is, we have to stop the habits. We got to stop what's causing it. And then what I find in my labs, the people with autoimmune disease, diabetes, cancers, heart disease, guess what they all have? Leaky gut.
No.
So leaky gut is almost one of the root cause, because once you have leaky gut, another analogy before my time's up here, you got a screen on our windows, right? And it's supposed to keep the bugs out, right? So leaky gut is, okay, you got these big holes in your gut and the flies and all that can get in and out. So when you have a leaky gut, you got all this undigested foods circulating in your bloodstream. The purpose of the digestive system is to process these foods. You keep what it needs to circulate in the bloodstream to heal the body, and you get rid of what it doesn't. But when you have a leaky gut, you got all these toxins circulating in your bloodstream. So the body is going to respond to that. That's what autoimmune disease is, the body attacking itself. It's like, oh, what's this carrot doing here? Ooh, what's this whatever doing here? This it's just fighting it. And it's like, this isn't supposed to be here. Get out. We got the think of the body with the fly swatter, and it's just hitting. But instead of saying, ooh, let me fix this screen, we're thinking, ooh, let me just take a Tums or a probiotic or something like that. And that's what I do. You got to get to the root. You got to get to the habits that are causing these things. And then what I see is the leaky gut leads to a lot of these other issues if it goes unchecked.
It's funny because I was trying to fix my face because as you were talking about the stuff, I was just like, you know what? I'm such a visual person, so I see it all happening. I'm just like, oh no. But I appreciate you sharing that because it's something that we hear about all the time. And there was, it was this guy, this influencer I saw on Facebook, and he teaches you how to grow things and stuff, which is good. I actually got some avocado seeds in my cabinet right now that wrapped up in paper towel and put them in a Ziploc baggie and wet it. And so, because I listen to his stuff, but he was talking about taking these chickpeas and doing something with them and then letting them sit for a week and then like blend them. And he was like, and it becomes like a yogurt that he was like, and it's got these probiotics in it. I was like, listen, I'm not trying to eat that with living creatures in it. I'm not. I don't know all of it. And I know it's supposed to be healthy. He was like, it has some healthy probiotics or whatever. I'm just like, I'm not interested in that. I eat chickpeas, but I'm not going to do that process and let them sit for a week and then eat them. I'm not going to be able to do it because it's in my head. But what are the benefits of probiotics or prebiotics? I think you might have said, because we hear these buzzwords all the time and people don't necessarily understand or know what they should have or shouldn't have. And people are taking all kinds of stuff trying to heal things because they saw a video like me, right? But what should we look for or avoid when it comes to things like probiotics or prebiotics?
Well, the body has a microbiome. I'll try not to get too nerdy on this, nerd out on this, but we have a natural flora in our body. And it's actually our microbiome that controls a lot of our cravings. We have more microbiome than cells in our body. So it has a lot of control than we think. And the way we feed it is fiber, whole food. But the thing is, it's not that we need more probiotics. The thing is, we're demolishing the natural flora in our body. And a lot of the probiotics on the market aren't even alive. By the time they're in the capsule and we put them in our bodies, they're dead. But eating things like fermented foods, sprouts, oh my goodness, kefir, all those things that are out there. But the thing is, we got to eat real whole food. We got to eat the fiber. And a lot of us are not eating enough pure fruits and vegetables that we need, because it's the prebiotics that feeds the natural microbiome in our body. So fiber feeds the microbiome. That's the easy answer that I can do, because I get real sciencey on this stuff. But that's what we have to understand, how the body works and how to give the body what it needs and stop giving what it doesn't. So a lot of the problems that we have is from a lot of the interference that we are causing. So we're causing a lot of these issues with these poisons that we're ingesting. So there's a lot of hacks out there, but at the end of the day, it goes back to, does my body need this?
So it sounds like it's better to eat the whole food than to juice. If
there's a time and a place for juicing, but yeah. So for example, like we tend to see, sometimes you can't do it because a lot of the food, it has pesticides on it and you might not want to eat the skin and all that, but don't worry about that. Say in a perfect world, the fruit has benefits. Even some of the seeds in some of the food has benefits. Juicing, there's a time and a place for that. There's power in it, but we just need a mixture. We need a variety of these things. And if you do get juice, I'm a juicer. I'll do it when needed, but I'll make sure I juice it myself and I'm getting as much of it as possible. I won't purchase it.
Yeah, because they usually have something added to it when you're buying the bottle. Yeah.
Right. Or we don't know how long, because if you're juicing, it doesn't last long. So if you're in the store and it's been sitting there, you're like, they did something to preserve it. So,
yeah.
But fresh is best. So have a variety. You don't even have to eat everything raw. Have a combination of not overcooked, but cooked, raw, juice. We just need variety. I don't even count calories or nothing like that. I tell my clients, just get a variety of healthy foods. And before you know it, your body, how animals can sniff and know what they want to eat? We have that ability too. We just lost it. Okay. Our bodies will tell us what we need at that time. There's time I just want to eat fruit that day. There's times when I just want to eat vegetables that day. There's times when I don't want to eat at all. And we just have to learn how to listen to that. But we've lost that connection with our bodies. Yeah, and that's a whole other conversation.
Oh yeah, like already in my mind, I'm like, we got 2 minutes and we don't have time to talk about fasting.
Oh my goodness, fasting is powerful, powerful. But what people need to understand is, when you get healthy, your body will tell you what it needs. It's I don't want to get too woo-woo-y, but the thing is, we're so toxic physically, mentally, we just don't know where to look. But once you start to remove those barriers, freedom, that's freedom right there. You're removing those barriers, and then you'll start to know what your body needs. Wow. That's freedom to me.
It is freedom. Thank you so much for taking the time to come to the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. Please tell folks where they can contact you, if you have a website or your social media handles, or however they should get in contact with you.
Well, to keep it simple without the long list, go to drleona.com and you'll find everything you need right there. I'm host of the Heal Deal podcast. I got quizzes, I got books, I got resources. So whatever you need, go to drleona.com, drleona.com.
Thank you so much. Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth. Thanks again for having me. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, have a good one. And give me 1 minute and I will be right back. Welcome back to the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast special.